If it's going to cut in and out, let's see. If it cuts out again, we'll just cut it off and do without it. In Isaiah 8 and verse 1, we have the expression here, write it with a man's pen, and that expression in the Hebrew is the pen of Enoch, giving the indication, as the Jewish tradition also preserves the account, that the grandson of Adam, Enoch, was the inventor of writing. Interestingly enough, archaeology and various of man's sciences date writing back to approximately that time period, back to the period of about, they've found writing that would date back to about 31 or 3200 B.C. Enoch would have been perhaps 300 or 400 years prior to that it could have been the beginning of writing. So that is fits in. But we have the account in Genesis chapter 5 of the genealogy of Adam's son Seth, who was the one that in effect took Abel's place. Abel was a preacher of righteousness. Seth also, who took Abel's place, was the line of righteousness, in the sense that Seth was one who followed the same way that Abel had, and it's made apparent as we come on down through the line of Seth and on down to Noah. But that doesn't mean that all of Seth's line stayed faithful either. Because while Seth was faithful and was a preacher of righteousness, we later read of Enoch, who was the seventh preacher of righteousness from Adam, that while there were certain individuals in that line, within a matter of a few generations, people began to veer off and to go the wrong way. And we have the account here in Genesis chapter 5, coming on down through through this line of individuals. Now, in the rendering here, or in the question, commented on Genesis 4:26. A couple of alternate translations would be that Seth, there was born a son, he called his name Enoch, then began men to preach and publish in the name of the Lord. That is one possible translation. Another translation is then began men to call themselves by the name of the Lord. Now, these two quite a bit different translations. In many cases, the Hebrew uses a play on words, and it's not that both meanings could be correct, conveying two totally different aspects of it. That here in this context, where Enoch, the one who invented writing, and this is the beginning of the publishing of the gospel message, or of the truth of God, that this marks the beginning of an organized effort. In that sense, that's certainly a possible meaning and is allowed by the text. But also the concept that then began men to call themselves by the name of the Lord. Now, one of the things we saw last time was that Cain appropriated to himself. Cain was deified by his followers. His followers came to view him as one who was worshipped as a god. Cain viewed himself as the promised seed, as the Messiah. When he organized city life, when he organized civilization prior to the flood, one of the primary means of controlling that civilization was through false religion. That was the introduction of false religion. And Cain is pictured, in fact, even in the context of history and legend, is pictured as one that was worshipped as a god, is the name Saturn that the Greeks and the Romans used. Saturn is the god of the god Saturn of the Greeks. was viewed as the giver of agriculture and the inventor of civilization, the author of civilization for man. We're told in Egyptian history, Osiris was viewed as the giver of civilization to Egypt, as the inventor of agriculture. We read, of course, that Josephus tells us that Cain was the first to contrive to plow the ground. He was the inventor of agriculture. We see him identified in this way. The thing to realize is that Cain and some of his descendants, such as Lamech, such as Tubal Cain and others, the heroes, the kings, were deified. The Cain were viewed as a god, then his descendants viewed themselves as the sons of God. Now when you look at that expression in Genesis chapter 6, in verse 1, it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, there's several things to be brought out here. The sons of God in this context. Now, the term sons of God is used in several different contexts in the Scripture. Here, it clearly does not refer to angels. Some commentaries will say that. There's certain commentaries that will say angels married women prior to the flood. This is very clearly proven that the sons of God in this context does not refer to angels. Let's notice the proof. The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. They took them wives of all whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also yet is flesh. And verse 5, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. It repented the Lord, verse 6, that he had made man on the earth. Verse 7, the Lord said, I will destroy man. The whole context is talking about the sin of men. There's no reference here to sin of angels. These are men. God sees what people are doing, and it displeases him. So clearly, it's not talking about angels, even though in other areas of the Bible, the term sons of God in some context, it certainly does refer to angels in the book of Job and other places. But it doesn't here. Sometimes in the New Testament, the term sons of God is used to refer to converted Christians. Beloved, now are we the sons of God. The people that are being talked about in Genesis 6:2 are not converted Christians. They're not converted human beings, people who were really true servants of the true God. They were individuals who did what they wanted to do in spite of what God said, and whose conduct displeased God. We're not reading here of that to try to equate the sons of God with the righteous line of Seth. Again, totally misses the point. Well, why would the context here is of those who initiated doing things they shouldn't do. We're looking here at the line of Cain, very clearly, who viewed Cain as a god, who viewed themselves as the sons of God. They saw the daughters of men. Here contrasting the daughters of other branches of the family, apart from the line of Cain, perhaps particularly the daughters in the line of Seth, that they were fair. And the Hebrew term here is a word that means literally light or fair in the sense of blood. So there is a contrast here. And they took them wives of all whom they chose. They weren't interested. You see, here's the way it came, the way of yes. I want what I want. I don't care what God says. I don't care what instructions God has given. You know, Satan has always wanted to do the opposite of what God designed. God designed that there be different branches of the human family. God designed that. He went to a lot of trouble. You know, it would have been very simple if God had just wanted one kind of human being. God went, if you want to look at it, God went through a lot of trouble. He built in, He designed the blueprint for the various branches of the human family, the various racial groupings, and built that into Mother Eve in terms of heredity, blueprinting in the various spots. It was important to God that there be different branches of the family. That was His plan. That was His purpose. God had a great overall plan and purpose. God purposed to separate the sons of Adam, to disperse them out. We're told that in Deuteronomy. To disperse them out, to give them various areas in the world to develop. It was God's purpose to separate out the sons of Adam. So Satan has always, one way or another, Satan has always tried to bring about one world in a different way than what God wanted to bring about one world. Satan's one world is called Babylon the Great. That's confusion. That's a mixture, a hodgepodge, just everything, religion, everything, just all the various ideas. Mystery Babylon the Great is described in Revelation. Take the religious aspect of that. What has the Catholic Church done? Well, it's taken a dab of everybody's paganism and kind of mixed it all in the same pot and stirred it up. And so you have old Indian superstitions, and you have myths from Greece and Rome and Egypt and every place imaginable. You kind of dump it all in the pot, stir it up, and you come out with Babylon, confusion. It becomes such a confused mess, you never can get it all sorted out. So we're told, let no one beguile you from the simplicity that is in Christ. God's way is very simple. Straightforward, it's clear-cut, it's simple. Satan's way is a hodgepodge, it's confused. God intends to have one world, but it's going to be one world God's way. Yes, there's going to be a universal language. Yes, there's going to be a universal religion based on God's truth. But there will also be individuality in that one world. There will be various nations, various groupings that will, in Christ's millennial reign, that will have different territories, that will develop their own inheritance, that will develop and build on the things that God has given them, that will learn the right kind of self-esteem, the right kind of appreciating their heritage as a gift from God, recognizing that they as human beings have value because they are made in the image of God and God has given them value which no man can take from them. That they're human beings in the image of God and that they're to develop their talents and their ability to the glory of God and that they are to be a part of the overall plan and purpose that God is working on. And to appreciate that. Satan always wants people to be dissatisfied with those things that they cannot see. So you see, Satan would like for people, for instance, to be dissatisfied with their sex. He'd like for women to think that really in order to be successful, they've got to be like a man. So throw aside trying to do the things that God designed a woman to do and try to compete in a man's world, try to be a man. Try to act like a man and walk like a man and dress like a man and talk like a man, look like a man. I mean, just look around. Look around at some of the fashions. Look around at some of these types that you see in the ads and on television. Are they evident? The ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God is a great price. See, in effect, Satan is saying, hey, you want to be successful? You want to be somebody? Well, in order to be somebody, you've got to be something you're not. Because what you are is no good. So you've got to try to be something you're not. Well, all that's going to produce is frustration. And Satan likes for people to be frustrated because frustration leads to resentment and depression. And it leads people into just, becoming so encumbered in a mess. Satan would like for people to be dissatisfied with something such as their death. Because you don't have any choice over that. You are what you are. You're male or you're female. Satan would like for people to be dissatisfied with their race. Because you are what you are. You have no choice of your heritage. Satan would like for people to be dissatisfied with that. He would like for them to be satisfied and accept flaws in their character that they can and should do something about. You know, in Satan's world, when they talk about, well, accept yourself, they're talking about accepting all kinds of sins and character flaws that ought to be rooted out. Satan wants us to accept the things about ourselves we ought to change, and he wants us to resent and be dissatisfied with those things over which we have no control. You know, so what does that produce? Well, here you had this situation. Here you had an intermarriage that's described here in Genesis 6 and verse 2. The sons of God saw the daughters of men. The line of Cain saw the line of Seth, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all whom they chose. Not the ones that God had chosen from them, for them. Not respecting the divisions and the distinctions that God had built in. And so at this point, God says, my spirit is not always going to side with man. I'm not going to put up with this. I designed things to go a certain way. I intended to produce things that are going to lead to a certain result, and I'm not going to put up with things getting so far afield. I'm not going to put up with a result that is different than what I want. I'm going to give man 120 years. And if I don't see things turning around in that time, I'm simply going to wipe them out. You see, God started out with an objective that he was going to arrive at. God knew where he was going, and so when he gets there, he's going to be pleased to be there. God started out with a family that is going to rule the universe in mind. That's his ultimate destiny. God started out to reproduce himself. And he knew how he was going to do it. He was going to build a family. And he was going to build in a basis for organizing and departmentalizing that family and for organizing the whole universe. Now, we don't fully understand how everything is going to fit in and how some of this is going to carry on over into eternity. We don't have to understand. God understands. And when we get there, he'll clue us in. See, that's the thing. Just because you and I don't understand every detail of why God wanted something done a particular way, hey, God didn't have to tell us exactly why he wanted something done a particular way. God doesn't go into a lot of detail as to why he doesn't want to feed pork. He just says, don't eat it. Now, you may come up, and science may come up and say, well, yeah, you know, there's this problem or that problem. And then some crackpot comes along and thinks, well, you know, he solved the problem, he just grow a leaner pig. Or feed him better feed. Well, I'm still not going to eat. See, God says, don't eat it. The point is, God didn't owe some detailed explanation of exactly why he wanted us to do this or didn't want us to do that. It's the point that God simply gives instructions. Some things he gives explanations. Some things he simply, you realize that God knows where he's going in areas here as far as God's ultimate design. God only gives us a glimpse of eternity. He talked about the New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven. He talked about will be there on the rest of the earth, the ethnos, the nations of those that are saved. It talks about in Revelation how that each of those will come in. They will all relate into God to headquarters through one of these gates. That's where the 144,000 and all of that comes in. That's God's organized number. God is organized. He knows where he's going. He's got it lined out. It's not; these numbers are not accidental. God had those things planned out before he ever got started. And it was a part of God's plan, as it mentions all the way back in the end of Revelation when it talks about the New Jerusalem, that there be ethnos, there be various nations, various family groupings. God's the one that designed in all of that. God did not want simply one homogenized version of human beings. He wanted various groupings. He built in certain things. How does all of this apply and how does it relate going on out into the family of God in the future? God doesn't tell us every detail. But it was important to him, and he went to a lot of trouble to do it that way. And he did not appreciate it when, Satan always wants to try to undo and try to mess up and try to pervert and twist and distort what God is doing. And because maybe human beings don't understand why God places such importance on certain things, Satan tries to twist it, just like he did to Adam and Eve with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They didn't really see what was so bad about it. And God had not given them all kinds of explanations as to all the things that were bad about eating it. He just said, don't do it. Now, did it produce bad results? Yes, it did. God said, don't do it. If you do it, you're going to die. He didn't go into a lot more explanation of all the things that it caused. Satan took advantage of saying, hey, how do you know, and is it going to do this, and maybe it won't be that bad, and all of the various things. Well, trying to play on the fact, well, if you don't understand it, don't do it. And God says, a good understanding of all they that do His commandments. God says, start doing and you'll gain understanding. Satan would like to say, well, hey, don't do anything if you don't understand. Well, if you never do anything you don't understand, then you'll never do what God says because you'll never understand it. Mr. Armstrong kept the holy days 7 years before he understood why. If he had waited until he understood why before he kept them, he never would have kept them. Because he never could have understood them unless he kept them. It's that principle that runs through. God wants a yielded attitude. He wants people who want to do what He wants. The line of Cain didn't. They didn't, it wasn't limited to the line of Cain. Cain was a ringleader. He is the one who is named and is therefore the ringleader, but ultimately the whole human race, except for Noah, fell in line with him, following that way. And it produced these kinds of results. There were giants. This term, giants, is the term here, giants, is Nephilim, which means it is a term or an expression that does not necessarily mean giant in stature. Let me read you a little bit out of the companion Bible. The term is brings out as Nephilim, and I'll read you a little bit more about the definition of that. Here we have an expression that could mean the sense of just like well, we might use the term that means the fallen ones, and or the expression could be described of bullies, of individuals who were giants in strength, or who were individuals that were abusive. The expression here, giants in the King James, is a little bit of slightly misleading, because when we think of giants, we think of somebody like Goliath. The expression later on in the Old Testament used to refer, for instance, to Goliath is the term Rephaim, which does refer to a giant by way of stature. But these that it refers to as giants are different. Different in that way. Now, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, the line of Cain, here to the daughters of the line of Seth, they bore children. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown, or men who are renamed. We find the great heroes of Greek and Roman mythology, all of this. the men of renown. God saw that the wickedness was great, that every imagination of the thoughts of the heart was evil continually, repented the Lord He had made man. God said, I'm going to destroy human beings that I've made. Because He saw that everything was headed the wrong way. Violence filled the earth. We're told in verse 11, the earth was corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence. All flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. There was violence, there was immorality, there were the wrong kinds of marriages and things that weren't marriage at all. There was just every kind of thing going on. And it just literally filled the earth, and it was something that God said as He saw the state of things. There's no way that what is here we are, see, 1,500 years after creation, another 4,500 years to go until 6,000 years are up. The state of things right now, there's no way it's going to go 4,500 more years. When I get 4,500 years from now, I'm not going to have anything at all like what I want. It's not going to last that long. It's going to be things are getting so far off track. I'm not going to be producing the kind of family that I want. I'm not going to. Things are getting to a state where my way is simply going to be completely lost. So God simply stepped in. He intervened in history. He intervened here with the flood. Noah found grace in the eyes of God. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. Now here are two different expressions. Noah was a just man. The term here is tzaddik, which is the term for righteous. He was righteous in his character, and the term perfect in his generations. Now you'll see that translated in different translations several different ways, but the King James is really the better way of rendering it, because the word is translated perfect is the Hebrew word tamim, which means without blemish, as to breed or pedigree. It is an expression that is elsewhere used of the sacrifices that were to be offered before God. So Noah was without blemish in his generations. We see here that what was the situation was producing that the identity of the various families of human beings was being lost. Here was Noah, who was an individual that first and foremost he was righteous. He was a man who obeyed God. He found grace in God's sight. God was merciful to Noah because Noah was tzaddik. He was righteous. Noah kept God's commandments, and he sought to walk with God. And in addition to that, Noah was also a man through whom God could first and foremost preserve righteousness, and secondarily preserve the lineage through Noah and through his family that would give rise after this destruction to these families of human beings that God wanted to preserve. Noah had three sons, at least three sons that were saved on the ark, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All flesh corrupted their ways, and God told Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me. The earth is filled with violence. I'm going to destroy it. Make you an ark of gopher wood, rooms you're to make, pitch it within and without. Told him the dimensions he was to make this boat. And as we've already commented, even with the smallest cubit, we're looking at something that would have been a minimum of 450 feet long by 75 feet wide by 45 feet tall. So at the very minimum, the ark was the height of a 4-story building and was 450 by 75 feet at the smallest. Could have been larger. Could have been on up to the height of a 6-story building. Could have been 600 by 100 by 60 if the cubit was a 24-inch cubit, but just used the smaller one, and it still was very ample size. And God said, I'm going to destroy all flesh wherein is the breath of life. But I'm going to establish with you my covenant, and you and your sons, your wife and your sons' wives. And you're to take on the ark 2 of every sort, a male and his female, and as we will see on down in chapter 7 and verse 2, he says, you take on the clean beast by 7, and of the unclean by 2. Even proof of this, Noah didn't have any bacon on board the ark, because he only had 2 pigs, right? If he killed one and eaten him, then there wouldn't be any little pigs. So, anyway, there was here we had it clearly known that there was a distinction between clean and unclean animals that was known prior to the flood. It's not something that came up with Moses. No one knew the difference between clean and unclean. Noah took on food and all of these things. And then God told Noah, come onto the ark. I've seen you are righteous in this generation. You stand out on the face of the earth from among all these people because you're righteous. You're a man who keeps my commandments. You're a man that really tries to walk with me and to please me. God told him 7 days I'm going to cause it to rain. It's going to rain 40 days and 40 nights. I'm going to destroy everything from off the face of the earth. Noah did what God told him. The interesting thing is they went on the ark and they waited after they were on the ark 7 days. When they went on the ark, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. When Noah entered into the place of protection God had for him, he had to do so by faith. If the bottom had been falling out, just rain had been pouring and lightning had been flashing and thunder rolling, it wouldn't have taken a whole lot of faith to get on that ark. But to go on the ark, to go through all of this, to get on the ark and close things up when there's not a cloud in the sky because you say it's going to rain and destroy everything, that takes faith. Now, Noah had works with his faith. He built the boat. He didn't just believe, as the Baptists would say. He did something more. He believed, and because he believed, he did something. He built a boat. But even then, he had to do what he did by faith. He was 600 years old when the flood came. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. The fountains of the deep were broken up. The windows of heaven were open. Water just poured down. It came down from above. It came up from underneath. Just great earthquakes, great underground geysers, and just came shooting up and erupting. Water seemed to be coming from all directions. Just because science can't figure out where all the water came from, there's a lot they can't figure out. There are a lot of things that they don't know, and a lot of things we'll find out in a few years. Self-same day, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, Noah's wife, and 3 wives of his sons, went into the ark. And they went in with the animals. God shut them in. The flood was 40 days. The waters prevailed. Prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the water prevail, and the mountains were covered. Those 15 cubits upward could refer either to the draught of the ark or just to the distance over the highest land point that was covered. In other words, that you're looking at a minimum of let's say a little over 20, 22, or 3 feet above the highest mountain that everything was. It's plain that if you some people say, well, it's just a local flood. Well, the flood was taller than Mount Ararat. Now, anybody that knows anything about science knows water seeks its own level. You can't have water real high over here and real low over there. Water is going to seek its own level. And you either had something that was water's taller than Mount Ararat. I'm going to guarantee you it's going to cover a lot. You see, you're going to cover. You're taller than Mount Ararat. You're going to cover the whole Middle East. You're going to cover. You're going to cover Europe. You're going to cover. There are not a whole lot of peaks in that area that are that tall. So here's water that's going to be spread out everywhere. You know, it makes the whole emphasis, you see, of trying to say, well, it's just a localized flood. Well, why do that? God said that all flesh had corrupted itself. But He was going to destroy all flesh. Why have Noah build a boat? If all he was going to do was flood one little valley, why not just tell him climb the mountain and go on the other side? It'd be a whole lot simpler. Why bring all these animals on? To preserve them alive. I mean, there's no way in the world you can believe the Bible and not believe in a universal flood, because that's what's described. God wiped out the human race, and when He wiped out the human race, everything else too, it started over. Preserved the family, okay? The ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month on the mountains of Ararat. And it decreased continually until the 10th month. And 40 days later, Noah opened the window, sent forth a raven. I mean, look at all the time it took for the water to go down. We're not talking about, where the creek rises and gets a couple of inches of water in your house. I mean, we're talking about months before you can see dry land. That is not some little localized flood. Sent forth a raven, sent forth a dove, and notice He was doing this in increments of 7 days, every 7 days. Logically, He was doing it on the Sabbath. And finally, the dove brought forth, in verse 11, brought back an olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth, and he waited another 7 days. And he sent forth the dove, and it didn't come again. So in the 601st year, the 1st month, the 1st day, the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked. And behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, the 27th day, the earth was dried, and God told him to go out. See, even though the water was going down, it was, can you imagine how muddy it was? Can you imagine how deep and boggy everything would have been, even when the water began to go down? So we're looking at weeks for things to get dry enough for Noah and them to go out. Now, plant life would have been preserved. Certainly, certain cuttings of domestic growth, undoubtedly Noah had on the ark. In the context of food, he would have had seeds, various cereal grains, and perhaps cuttings of various fruit trees and things of that sort. But these things, all kinds of plants and trees and grasses and things would have just generated on its own after the flood, where the seed would have, once things were dried up enough, it would have taken root and grown. So Noah went forth, and all the animals, he built an altar, took of all the clean animals and all the clean fowl, he offered burnt offerings, and God says, I'm not going to curse the ground anymore for man's sake. The imagination of his heart is evil from his youth. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to send another flood. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So the cycles of the seasons will remain unbroken. God blessed Noah and his sons. He said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you is going to be upon all the beasts. Now that hadn't been the case on the ark, but now that is once again going to be the case. He gives him instructions concerning these things, that they were free to eat freely while they were on board the ark. Undoubtedly, they had probably confined themselves to a diet of the fruits and vegetables and cereal grains and things of that sort, because they only had a few animals on board the ark, you see, and you can't, you start killing off the clean animals, and there wouldn't be anything left for breeding stock. But he tells them now that it's going to be permissible once again to eat these animals, and reminds him of certain of the dietary laws concerning blood, and brings out, you see, what was the starting point? What caused the flood to begin with? If you go back, the fact that violence filled the earth. Why did violence fill the earth? Because it spread out from the first murderer. Sin spreads. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. Now, God tells Noah, He said, all right, you see what's happened. You see what the result was. From henceforth, whoever kills man, by man shall his blood be shed. I want capital punishment executed for murder. That's the only way to prevent violence from filling the earth. You know, interestingly enough, you see, Christ said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. So what do we see? We see violence filling the earth. Why? Well, Ecclesiastes says, because sentence against an evil work is not speedily executed, the heart of men is set in them to do evil. You know, the result, violence fills the earth as a result of a liberal, permissive, anything goes type of society that does not want to properly execute punishments. So the result is violence fills the earth, and a whole lot more die, and a whole lot more blood is shed than if individuals who were going to do violence to their neighbor were simply executed and gotten out of the way. So God instructed Noah about this, and promised that there would not be a flood, and pointed to the rainbow as a sign. That, he says in verse 13, I have set, is the proper rendering, my bow in the cloud, and it's a covenant. It's a sign for a covenant there. You're to know, you notice that from henceforth, when you see it, you're to be reminded that I won't ever cause this kind of thing again. And goes through and describes, and then we see Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and of them was the whole earth overspread. So all humanity descends from these sons. Now, when we trace it, as we're going to go into Genesis 10 and 11, that the family of Ham peopled Africa, the family of Japheth peopled Asia, and the family of Shem peopled Europe. That is, in simple terms, the expression of it. We'll prove that when we go through Genesis 10. Obviously, these are different racial types. Where did it come from? Well, clearly, Ham's wife was black, and Japheth's wife was Oriental. God allowed that in the sense that because that God preserved those families, preserved that, and in so doing, preserved the basic stuff. The wife of Ham in Jewish tradition was Naamah, the descendant of the line of Cain, the daughter of Lamech, of the descent of Cain. And that, of course, certainly ties in, because that the family, we find the family of Cain in Egypt, dominating Egyptian history prior to the flood, and in the aftermath of the flood, we find once again them in that area. And of course, being one of Ham's sons, Mithraim, who was the father of the people who settled Egypt after the flood, and the other sons settling various portions of Africa. So in that sense, actually, the line of Cain through Naamah was preserved. The family lineage of the wife of Japheth is not mentioned, coming from one of the other of Adam's sons. They simply, that branch of the family, of the human family, did not figure in the activities that were going on and on the scale that the descendants of Ham and Japheth did, or Ham and Shem did. Now, let me comment here in the latter part. Noah began to be a husbandman. He planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine. He was drunk. He was uncovered in the tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers without. Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon both their shoulders, went backward, covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were backward. They didn't look. Noah awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done unto him. Now, whose younger son? Who did what here? Knew what his younger son. Was Ham the younger son of Noah? No. Ham is always mentioned as the middle son. It's always Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the middle son of Noah. Who was the younger son? Well, notice in verse 22, Ham, the father of Canaan, saw this. Noah awoke and he knew what his. Who does the his refer to? The his refers to Ham. Knew what Ham's younger son had done, because Canaan was the younger son of Ham. Going over to Genesis 10:6, the sons of Ham, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. So, God did not curse Canaan because of what Ham had done. He cursed Canaan because of what Canaan had done. Ham simply saw what had been done, told his brothers, and his brothers covered their father up, and when he woke up, notice, he knew what Ham's younger son had done unto him. So there was some type of perversion that took place while Noah was passed out in his tent. And that was what was involved, and on the basis of that, he said, "Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be to his brethren." Now, understand, all of us have to become servants. That's why he's called a servant of servants. Servant of servants, because the others, everybody's going to have to be a servant. Everybody's going to have to be God's servant. So there were simply, some of these things were simply matters of cause and effect. They're just as obedience brings blessings, disobedience brings curses. Here were the sins of the fathers are visited on the children, not because God dislikes you because of what your ancestor did, simply a matter of cause and effect. There are problems that can be in the family that will simply result in curses, result in problems, result in a deterioration of the family structure. And the family structure is the basis of society, is the basis of civilization. If the family structure deteriorates, then an entire society deteriorates. You know, the curse here really had to do with the state of things with Canaan was such that his descendants were going to suffer because of being raised up in a family by a man who had this state of morality. And so what kind of chance do you think his kids had in life? And his grandchildren who grew up as the products of that kind of attitude, those kinds of attitudes. And the result, of course, was that it severely impacted the entire family generations down the line. He said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem," because Shem was one who was faithful to God, and Canaan shall be his servant, and that is simply a matter of history. God shall enlarge Japheth. Japheth, of course, the branch of Japheth became the most populous. They had spread out. They're far more of the descendants of Japheth on earth than any of the descendants of Shem or Ham. All the Oriental people descended from Japheth. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he, Japheth, shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Shem was the one of Noah's sons who was clearly the most faithful to God and the one through whose family the faithful line came. Shem was faithful to God, and his descendant Abraham and these others were, and there were blessings that were reaped, and so God will enlarge Japheth. He's going to dwell in the tents of Shem. Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So we have basically a description here and the beginnings of post-flood civilization, how certain things came about. The description that we had. Let me just briefly comment on any questions that we haven't mentioned. Did Enoch die? Yes, he clearly did. Hebrews 11 says, mentions Abel and Noah, and Abel and Enoch and Noah and Abraham and Sarah, and then it says, these all died in faith. So Enoch died. He died in faith. It's appointed unto all men once to die. After that, the judgment. If Enoch had not died at all, but had gone directly to heaven, he would have been one up on Jesus Christ, because even Jesus died. The death that Enoch did not see, because he was translated, was the second death. He was translated or transferred from the kingdom of this world into his citizenship was in the kingdom of God, and he's going to be in the resurrection. He died in faith. He did not see death. He would not see death in the sense of the second death. But these all, Hebrews 11 says, did die once, first death, in faith. The significance of Methuselah's name, it means, the sense of it is literally, when he dies, it shall go forth. And the Methuselah died in the year of the flood. And evidently his whole long life was a prophecy of the flood. When he dies, it's going to go forth. Year after year, he kept living, 969 of them, but when he died, it went forth. 6:2, the sons of God, the descendants of Cain. Put this together, Genesis 4:1, Genesis 4:26. Call themselves the sons of God. The intermarriage is here described. The approximate size of the flood, or the ark rather, with the smaller cubit, the 18-inch cubit, 450 feet by 75 feet by 45 feet. Which would have been, if you figure it, would have been equal to 8 freight trains of 65 freight cars each. The flood of Noah, a universal flood, yes, Genesis 6 through 7, Genesis 6:17, Genesis 7:19. We've already commented on many of those scriptures. Law of clean and unclean was known prior to Moses, Genesis 7:2. Noah took them on the ark. How long were Noah and his family in the ark? 1 year and 17 days. Genesis 7:7. Genesis 7:10 through 11. And Genesis 8:14 through 18. You put that together and explain they were in the ark 1 year and 17 days. Genesis 9:3. We're to eat meat in the same way we eat vegetables. Eat those that are good and avoid those that are poisonous, or those that are unclean. Genesis 9:24 and 25. We've already commented on that. Ham was Noah's middle son. Canaan was Ham's youngest son. And let's, if I can get somebody to help pass out these questions here. Yeah, this is Genesis 10 through 11. Yeah. One of the things that comes out as we look here and we look at the state of things, we realize the extent to which Satan always wants to undermine God's plan and God's purpose. God has allowed a lesson of experience. He has allowed a course of history to be written. And God has set these things down for us because He wants us to understand and to realize where things lead. Satan has deceived the whole world. People think they've come up with a new idea. They think they've come up with something better. They think they've come up with some brand new approach or brand new way of doing things. And in reality, it's the same old thing. You know, the devil keeps stirring somebody up to promise a new deal. And in reality, it always turns out to be the same old raw deal. That's all it ever is. Because the only deal that's going to work is the one that God has. That's God's way. And I think as we go through some of this, we're going to focus in next time on Genesis 10 and 11, going into a lot on the Tower of Babel and on the Table of Nations, and I will have a chart to pass out to you next time showing the origin, the specific origin of all of the various nations. And then we're going to pick up speed here in Genesis. We'll cover, next Bible study will be on Genesis 10 and 11, then we'll go through Genesis 12 through 36, the story of Abraham and Isaac, and on into the story of Jacob. And then we will conclude the book of Genesis with 37 through 50, the time after that. So we'll begin to pick up speed here in Genesis as we get on a little bit further. But I wanted to take a little more time going over some of this very beginning material in Genesis to help, and even at that, we have simply surveyed. But you know what we're going to study, so I'm sure you've read it in detail. It's not necessary for me to comment on every single word. And if there are things that you wish to have commented upon that weren't, well, then you can send up a question on it, and we'll try and cover that. Okay, we can just stick the questions up here, and if anybody needs any more, you can get them after the study. Well, with that, we'll be concluded this evening. I look forward to seeing you on the Sabbath. Good night.